I told them a very old Mexican expression. We owe you money, I recognize it, but I don't have any money to pay you back. It was the detonation of the debt crisis.
As finance minister in 1982, Jesus Silva Herzog Flores broke the news to the world that Mexico would halt repayment of its debt, triggering a continent-wide crisis. He spent 4 years in the eye of the storm and sees strong parallels with Europe.
We expand the public sector, and as it happens when you are in a booming period, you forget the fundamentals. And that's what we have been seeing in Europe today.
When the US Federal Reserve raised interest rates, Mexico's spiraling debt could no longer be serviced. Washington and the IMF moved to help, with conditions. Under pressure, Herzog imposed austerity measures, including slashing the public sector. By 1989, per capita GDP had shrunk by 11%. It was the so-called lost decade.
Probably it is true. We lost a decade, but to a certain extent, we won a decade. Because during that period, we opened up the economy, we privatized a good number of public companies.
You don't think those austerity measures that were wanted by the IMF that you imposed, you don't think they bit too hard on the Mexican economy?
The problem here is how to manage the sacrifice, the shrinking of the economy, the decrease in the minimum wage, in the welfare of the people, with opportunities of employment and of growth.
And you look at Greece, do you think the measures there are too severe, the austerity measures?
I think they are too severe, especially because they have had already 5, 6, 7 years of negative growth. A big difference in Mexico was that the previous period we had a boom. So we have a kind of a fat that we can use in the austerity period.
After the default, private lenders from Japan to the United States were facing bankruptcy. An agreement needed to be reached. Here Herzog signs a deal to delay payment of more than $8 billion. But like in Greece, most IMF loans ended up in the hands of creditors. What lessons do you think specifically can be applied to the crisis in Europe right now?
That the problems are not going to be solved from one day to the other. We lived through a difficult decade in the 80s, and I don't see how Europe will escape from something like a lost decade. Second, there is a need of a political will on the part of the debtor and on the part of the creditor. The debtor is going to see a deterioration in the standard of living of its population with social unrest, and the creditor will lose money. No other way.